I'm going to talk to you about today is Edmodo. I've been using this academic year with some of my classes. I've found it a really useful tool. It does look very much like Facebook when you first log in, which has led my Year 11s to affectionately call it Fakebook. But the difference with this is that it is completely controlled by you, the teacher, and that's including all comments, any access, all student interaction, so you can have complete control. So there's none of the fears that I know a lot of schools and teachers have around using Facebook for education. This is specifically designed for education. They're not allowed to interact between one another unless it's under your guidance. So it's purely based for task setting, student-teacher interaction and parent interaction with both the students and with the teacher. A great tool within this forum is the quiz tool. So when you log in, there'll be a news feed very much looking like Facebook would, but mostly with your updates on there. And one of the tools that you can pop in there, which will come up as an update for particular students you're aiming at, is a quiz. So for instance, I set spelling tests on a weekly basis for some of my classes, and I set that as a multiple choice quiz. There are different quizzes you can use in there. And that will pop up as an alert. They'll need to take that quiz and it will save it into the mark book automatically. So it marks it for you, obviously, which is very handy. Another tool you can use within there is a poll. And again, you direct this at who you want to answer that. So the polls could be, for instance, I've used one where I asked students, do you have access to a phone that uses the internet or a laptop or PC at home where you're able to access the internet? So I knew who it was that I'd need to help out with homeworks or any tasks that I set where they need to access this at home. And that automatically updates, so you could have on the interactive whiteboard the results updating live in the classroom. You could use that for starter or plenary as well. You can also set assignments in here and direct it towards individual students or whole classes, and they will have to hand that assignment in and attach a document to the update they have with the outline of the assignment. You can attach any documents to it as well. And once they've done that, you can actually feed back to them. So here they've done a particular creative writing task and I've put a comment underneath with some targets and the level that they're at. And this will also, if I've given it a grade, will pop up in their mark book. That's my teacher mark book, but they have an individual student mark book. And if they click on each one of these, that will be their actual task that they completed, and they can go in and have a look at my feedback and their task. You can also update them, so just notifications in general. You can aim that at parents and at students, so homework notifications, and you can start a dialogue with the marking. So here, underneath my marking that's beneath their task that they've handed in, they can actually respond to that, and I can then respond to them as well. They can actually hand in an updated version too, which is a great part of the resource of Edmodo. And finally, I'd like to talk to you about my use of Google Drive in the classroom. This is, I think, possibly my favourite tool I've been using with, especially with items like creative writing and essay writing. It's been really, really interesting for me to experiment with this with my classes. Firstly, if you want to do a writing task, often if you think about a traditional writing activity in the classroom, the students are quietly working and they are writing, you're unable to go in and pick up that piece of work without disturbing their ongoing flow of work. With Google Drive, if you have the access to the computers or tablets or whatever, you can use phones. Google Drive is available for phones. All they'll need to do is to log into their Google account, go to Google Drive, open up a document and share that with you by putting in your Google email address. And then from my screen, and I often put this up on the interactive whiteboard so they can see what I'm doing because they find it quite interesting as well. From my Google Drive screen on the interactive whiteboard, I will have a list of all the documents that they are sharing with me, just pop up one by one as they send it through to me. And I can then just have an overview of everything the class is doing. So whether it's a creative writing piece, a particular essay they're doing, or anything else that you're doing which entails writing where they need to work quietly and focus on what they're doing, instead of you having to pick the book up from underneath them and have a look at it and give them feedback and interrupt them, you can just simply click on the document. They can carry on working. They'll see that you're watching. Your face will pop up actually in the corner here. If you have an icon, that will pop up there. and they will see that you're watching, but they'll find it strange at first, but they don't have to stop working. And you can then just have an overview exactly of what the class are doing. You can flick in and out of the different tasks that they're taking part in the particular classroom. You can also use the tool for collaboration. So I have in the past got my classes to create presentations on the social and historical context of A View from the Bridge. And I gave them a different element of the social historical context. There's so much they could have looked at, so I gave them a different one each to put them in pairs, and I asked them to create a Google Drive presentation without speaking to each other, just so they got used to using the tool. And I asked them to collaborate on that. So they share that document with each other. Most of them shared it with me as well, so I could watch what they were doing as they were doing it at home and when they were doing it in the classroom if I wanted to. But the idea was that they share it with each other. So it doesn't matter if they're sitting next to each other, they share the document. So they're both working live on the document together. And again, when they're both logged into the document, both their icons will pop up there. And they will be able to see where one another are editing. So for instance, here is a little... the cursor has the name of the person who's working just pop up above it. So in the document, in the presentation, they can see where the other person is working, take different slides themselves, and they can actually communicate via the chat facility. And that will save the chat that they're having as well. So if they're going in and out of the document, in class and out of class, they can carry on the conversation they're having about that piece of work. And then in order for us to have a look at the presentation, I asked them to share the document with me if they hadn't already, the presentation. And then I just had the list inside my Google Drive because they'd shared it with me. And I clicked on it one at a time, got them to come up and present. There was no fussing around with memory sticks or them having to log in. It was just all there. It saved so much time and just made us focus completely on the learning rather than faffing around with digital tools. This was very, very fluid when we were using it. That's a great way of doing it. As I was saying, the live marking. So if I'm getting a class to do a piece of creative writing or an essay, I will actually mark as they're going. So I will highlight different sections and make sure that I put at the side what it is that I'm wanting them to either focus on or complimenting them on. So in this particular one, I've highlighted the quote they've used and said that's an appropriate piece of evidence. And I here have highlighted Swindells the writer, and I've then said why I've highlighted that. That's great. You're starting to connect with the writer's intentions and things like that. So in this one, I've been complimentary and kind of just focusing them on what they're doing right, so they continue to do that. But what I could also do is make sure I'm focusing on perhaps the things they're not doing as well, and get them to edit that. And if I put in a comment that's highlighted and add comment, they have to actually tick when they've acknowledged it. And if it's an action you're asking them to do, you want them to do the action first, and they can tick it. And they can also actually reply to your comment. There is an option when they log in for them to just reply to the comment right there, and then you can carry on that conversation with them. Very useful tool. And again, they don't need to stop working for you to be doing that. And as I said, I often share that on the interactive whiteboard. I might have a group of them doing the task, or another group of them sit with me at the front, perhaps who need a little bit of extra help or a bit of stretching, and I have them sit at the front and I'll look at one of the students' pieces of work. You'd think they'd be embarrassed, but they're actually fine with sharing their work after you do it a few times. And I will live mark the work with those students to show them particular things they need to focus on, and particular ways perhaps that student's doing something well. As I said, there's a chat facility, so both you and the student can communicate without you having to highlight specifics. Ask them, have you got any questions? Is there something you need help on? Why have you chosen that particular piece of text? And that one is very much kind of like the instant messaging they might do in their own time. So again, they're very quick at responding to that. It doesn't interrupt their workflow half as much as if they were stopping to have a conversation, and their thought processes seem to actually speed up. There's also an option to have a look at the revision history, which is great for your progress. So if you're actually having a couple of lessons where you're doing writing, where they're on the computers and you're marking and you're chatting with them, you can then pop up the revision history and see what they've changed and when they've changed it. So everything they've edited, you can show that they've edited that, and it's them working and crafting and improving all the time. Great tool for showing that you're making progress with your students as well. And you can use it, as I said, on any device. So whether it's a phone, a tablet, whether it's Microsoft or whether it's Apple or Samsung, whatever it is, any device you can use Google Drive on. This is a brilliant tool. If you're not using it with your classes already, I urge you, you must use it.